Good morning, everyone. So, yesterday was interesting to an extent with yesterday's gap down, but we did get a mild turn day. It was starting out with the futures as we typically do. So, a red day in and of itself isn't a turn day. Um, and we've got the current day here, obviously, and things are moving lower toward Friday's low, which is a wider range bar. So, that tends to be significant on a short-term basis. The fact that it retraced down there. I think I mentioned yesterday about the consolidation prior to that move up, but I just reviewed that again on this chart. And so why would we look at one retracement versus another one and maybe not be as significant potentially? So when I see or anybody should see essentially a breakout, this consolidation. This has marked the correction bar. Then, it gapped up from there on the earnings news of Microsoft and Meta. And okay, that followed through and so on. So, what we want to see always, and we've said this so many times, wide range bar, stay in the upper half of the wide range bar, consolidate up there. If it dips down more than half 50%, we want to see it form a bottoming tail bar, and then that continues to support a move higher. So initially, right, it looks like, okay, they're going to come up here to the pivot high, give or take. And I think I also mentioned yesterday that when we look at these reference points, you really want to utilize SPX or SPY or the Qs, not a leveraged instrument, a leveraged ETF or the futures market. But the futures traders, obviously, they're looking at these reference points related to that instrument. So the fact that this is coming down to the bottom of this wider bar so soon is a sign of weakness. And it's like, okay, if you rested and moved up, you should continue to show strength and move up to the next area of resistance. And for the moment, it's not doing that. Still, nothing of that significance yet. I mean, if it closes below here today, it's going to be something to take note of. It closes below this wider range bar. So most times when, say, the way we would manage a trade is that when we get a wide range bar or a range expansion bar like this bottoming tail bar, you raise your stops because an event of significance happened. And what I explained, that event of significance should result, like this correction bar, should result in a continued move higher. This wider range bar should result in not closing below it. If it does, not what was expected based on historical patterns. So it's on its way down there. We'll see what happens when it gets there. You see the pivot on the 65-minute. So looking at other markets, as we do, see if there's agreement between them. And NASDAQ futures, yes, looked like it was going to get up here. Now it's in question. So this bar is in the making. It could turn into a bottoming tail bar by the end of the day. And so even yesterday, pre-market, when we look at the Qs and spiders, one of my comments was, okay, it's gapping down here. Who's to say it won't turn into, a green bar, right? That it fills the gap? And that's kind of what interestingly happened yesterday. It was a little weird, but I'll get to that in a moment. Um, let's finish up here. So the Dow has been showing relative weakness. So far, it's just consolidating up here. It's at the declining 50. It's kind of drifting, no real damage done. And it could turn into a bottoming tail bar and it goes higher. We'll just have to see. So, waiting for interest rate decision tomorrow, and which is supposed to be nothing. But, it's always the Fed chair's comments that people pay attention to primarily unless there is a change. And so right now there isn't an expected change coming. Russell was another one, looked like, play catch up like the Dow and move up to resistance. And now that's in question. And we'll again, see if it closes below that bar or not. Bottoming tail bar at the end of the day, Fed news tomorrow. I mean, that says they believe, right? There was enough institutions or traders believe buying the dip and driving it back up would make sense. And bar by bar would suggest to us it should go higher. Right now, we're just in the middle of nowhere. So, but weakening. Little upward trend here, coming into resistance. So all the things that we've been talking about, and yesterday is like sellers. This is where they should try and take control. Right? Try being the operative word. And earlier in the day, it was like, well, they tried on the gap down, but not very successful until right just before 3 o'clock. Right, all of a sudden, buyers threw in the towel, and down it went. But one of the things to look for, on a turn is, do we get a close below the low of the high day, or vice versa? If something continues to move down, and it hasn't done that for a while. And it just missed that, I think, by a few pennies, right? So here's the close. And so yesterday's low. And so it didn't close below it, but cut pretty darn close. And so now it's gapping down a relatively significant amount, which would suggest and coming down here to fill this gap. So put an alert, at the top of the correction bar. And as it comes down, you see my alert is right there, right? I suspect that, that's where buyers should show up. So my cursor, it's going to open on that pivot, give or take, on the 65-minute chart. And then because of the momentum move that went up there really isn't much of anything. You got this, what we call minor support, right, which is, again, beyond what's directly to the left. But so it would make sense for buyers to want to show up, in this area, filling the gap, top of the correction bar, and so on. And now we've got this kind of we call it a Bear Island reversal. So, gap up, gap up. There was a gap down. It flips back up a bit down again, and now it's gapping down. So, as always, we start the day. At the end of the day, we'll see where that day ends. And do we have these unfilled gaps, up above and here? Well, step by step, it certainly appears that things are starting to roll over at resistance, and we'll see if there's some follow through to that. Okay, let's look at IWM, and you can see it's a lot clearer as a little island reversal of those bars having gapped up a few days ago and now gapping down, leaving those two bars up there. I'll repeat again. Does it close with a bottoming tail bar? Or gapping down, does it not even fill the gap and close up there with a green bar? No. Starting off negatively. Yesterday started off negatively, and prices whipped around, and then, they moved up into the unfilled gap. Look at it, the spiders. Now, there's some news like that. A new institutional, relatively new, was an institutional favorite on this move off of the low, PLTR. That's gapping down. AMD's gapping down. So some negative tech stocks moving lower. Gold continuing. That thing was so whippy yesterday. It's whipping around, made its move. And so that was, and, was up there in the morning, and then it just jiggled around. thought there'd be a trade, some kind of setup there, but so follow through. And now there's what, new tariff talk. Trump now going to tax pharmaceuticals. Okay. Like they're not expensive enough. Silver moving up there, kind of a weird pattern. You know, that's when the idea of coming down after a wide range bar, coming out of a consolidation and drifting all the way back down to the bottom of it. It didn't close below it, but they typically don't go down there, after a bar like that from a resting period. So that's why I say it's kind of a weird pattern, but pivot low, support, buyers showed up there. Crude oil coming off of the low, right? An unusual pivot low to the left. It's going to be buyers there. Maybe not that those oil ETFs looked attractive, but good morning, Grant, Dan's MTs. What does that mean, Andre? You'll type in there and let me know what that means. All right. Interest rates. Not much yesterday. Said they're kind of like in the middle of no man's land, breaking lower, breakout, coming down in the middle of the, pivot high and pivot low. We'll see what they do after the Fed talk. Thoughts on USO, similar to crude oil. It's down here near this pivot low. It's gapping up toward this little resistance area. So I would look at oil stocks, and we can look at them today and see if any of them, usually things that retest lows and gap up, they lend themselves to starting off with, credit spreads, a bull put credit spread. If they make a turn and you get some premium to time to expiration. So, if you can find things that are showing relative strength, but again, USO, I don't find it to be something attractive for a trade. Look at the 15-minute chart and the 65. It's going to be right up into that resistance area. And you can see it's spurting up here a little bit. You're welcome, Robert. On the Tesla trade, that was really a textbook kind of basic trade. Yesterday in the green room, we day trade for those on social media. It came down to support, and we utilized the 5 and the 15-minute charts as they were bottoming out down here and got long right about there and it was a nice little day trade. It was a combination of a support level that had where buyers should show up, going down to the 5-minute, and we looked at the 2-minute, and there was evidence that buyers were stepping up. So, it was a trade where multiple concepts came together for a day trade. Yeah, cool. All right, SPX, and then we hand it over to Dan. So we always look at the spiders and where are they at. And so moving down a little bit, you see the gap down. I look up the cursor on the daily chart to see the bar that it's at. So I can look at SPX and visualize where it's at. And so just like the others, you would think with a move down like this at the open, it's going to test the 50 MA and this gap. So this would be a targeted area. You've got minor support. You've got a major support pivot prior to a higher high, unfilled gap. So this is a relatively significant reference point where buyers should want to step up. So it's over here right now, give or take a little bit. Right? It wouldn't take much more to get down there from where it is. SPX and average true range opening here. Even if we drag this down to They're about where it's opening, coming down there today. That's where the strike was when I looked this morning, the far strike. So the upside, I would say, is no possible way it's getting up there today. Right? News, some stuff, not relatively insignificant stuff around 10:10 and 10:30. Um, so unlikely to go up there. And now you've got this unfilled gap as well. So somewhere between where we pick the extremes and prior to that and resistance areas or support areas is where you want to look to put that on. All yours, Dan.
Well, I said yesterday, after reading the paper over the weekend, Dow and S&P up 9 days, the biggest move in 21 years. And I said, if I were doing whatever, fishing on an island with no TV, I would just say it's short of prior day's low. The internals got cooked. So we were very careful in new longs yesterday, and we got the sell-off. I mean, so here's an example of something very uniquely bullish. So we don't buy shit up 9 days in a row. It's just, McFly, I don't typically buy stuff 3 days up in a row without continuation pattern. So we're in this. This looks great. I can't, well, I see one dot here. But that's the point. Broader market, I was bearish, which kept a throttle on me for new longs. We did put on a few shorts, like this TFX looks great. I can't tell where it's opening. On Netflix, we did a call spread, gapping under the green bar. We did it right here when it was starting to roll. Still holding better than the other fangs. The other fangs pre-market here are all below. I mean, so it's Tesla, but I mean relative to the 15-minute chart. Um, but there's that. Elf. Yeah, somebody mentioned that yesterday, probably you. What I didn't like is this wall of resistance here. It is gapping down, so if it can recover, that would be impressive. So set an alarm at 68.50. NEM. It's kind of a big, sloppy bull flag, Thomas. Here's your flag pole, and here your counter trend 30-degree channel. And that's exactly what a bull flag is. And now it's gapping up. So that ain't bad. That ain't bad. A small little buy setup on the weekly. We have in the weekend letter XOP and OIH as put spreads over last Friday's high. And yesterday I didn't cancel them because I said, hey, if it hits, then it's fine. But I went ahead and canceled all pending trades in the weekly, and I still got my alarms. So that way we just don't rush into anything. A couple of alarms here before we look at earnings. Bull, I've been watching this for 2 weeks now. Friday was the start of the turn. Kind of got smacked down, but I'm still watching that. My alarm went off. Vic, inverse head and shoulders. So Alex, that's an inverse head and shoulders. So is that LYV. That's an inverse head and shoulder. We have that psychologist talk for a while. Big old left shoulder, downside shakeout, big old right shoulder, neckline, price void. That's nice. So I had an alarm go off, which was right here. I set an alarm at 42.80, thinking it was going to gap down. So Looks great. Let me raise it, yeah, to 42.90 now. I just saw this little guy bouncing around this morning. Gave it up. See, this is a sloppy buy setup after a pro gap from a bottoming pattern. It was strong this morning. Look at that range. 80 cents on a $1.30 stock. That's a big range. AI was in the news. They're buying a company and also said that they were not going to try to be a profitable company. I mean, for profit. AMAT I had on my list in the event that the semis wanted to rally. Got my alarm, but that's not going to hit now. This was Sam's. I said it's too extended from the 20 for a swing trade for me, particularly with the market up 9 days and gapping down yesterday and today. But this could have been a day trade, over yesterday's base here, whatever. It's not going to hit with the market gapping down again. Casey here, I'm hoping for a 1, 2, 3, which would be an inside bar that stays in the upper third. And then this is what classical people call a bull rectangle. You can see it better in the weekly. Here's my flag pole. Here's my rectangle consolidation. And it looks great, all time frames. All right, let's go to earnings now. Pelletier. Don, what did I say about this company? I said, I don't care where it opens, I got a bearish bias. I mean, I was hoping it'd gap up $10 or more, and then that would be an exhaustion gap. It's bullish as can be, but all the fundamentalists said it's insanely overvalued. And I got a chart that confirms lower prices. But now it's a call spread idea, but I seriously doubt we're going to get any premium at 126. But HIMS, bearish gap. Some people were talking about doing a condor on this. I did not. I did 3 others though. As I always tell you which ones I did, whether they're working or not. Ford had earnings, and they're another, no pattern, but another company who was pulling guidance based on tariffs. CE. There you go. That's potential bottoming pattern. So maybe 30-minute high, maybe put spread. WMB. I have an alarm up here. This is a big ascending triangle. Got horizontal resistance here. Look at these higher pivot lows. It gapped up and came in. Let me set an alarm at 60, spot 40. Yeah, we've done MT lives, obviously, on classical patterns, but using our analysis of them. O here, kind of an M top, but in an uptrend. It could also be a bull rectangle, so I don't know. But it's gapping down. 30-minute low could be a call spread. FANG is a big friggin' mess. Looks like a condor setup, which means selling out of money call spread, out of money put spread out. Today we got coaching, option coaching. But we're going to be doing a nice little quiz using Tesla chart and talking about technicals and option trades. All right, Upwork. I did a condor on this. The 15, 17 and a half and the 12 and a half tens. So I'll be feeling some pressure on the upside, but it's still out of the money. I'm not going to say 95%, but I'll say with 85%, I should have a nice gain at the open. I'm bidding, I think 20 or 30 cents to get out, I forget. Yeah, Alex and I did race together. So I shorted the 400s naked. Alex said he wanted to be assigned a red Ferrari, so he did the 410s. So that means he's took in more premium than I did. I did mine for $1.25, I think, and he, what did you get, 165? So I'm bidding a dime to get out of that. Burger, that's a nasty gap, over 10%, but there's going to be no pattern. 180 article. NVIX 123, gap's too big, but bullish. Tallow, gap's too big, but that is a bullish pro gap. But you know, risk to reward now. Forget about it. You know, Clorox, I said if it opened flat to down a little bit, then it was a short watch, consolidation and a downtrend. Look at these parallel 20 and 50. So that is gapping here to 135. So that is a short idea. Pelletier, there's going to be no trade. So let me put Clorox there. Let me give you this. Talking about coaching today. Here's the link for it. If you want to sign up, because then we email you the recording if you can't make it. Vano, not a bad day trade setup, gapping over all this. So let's watch that. It's just not a great void. So maybe put spread. RRX 121. No directionals, gap into this, but put spread idea. Got less than a minute to go, and here we go. WEC alarm. WEC is a big sideways multi-month consolidation. My up alarm went off. Yeah, we'll see, maybe 30-minute high. I'll reset it 109.50. Oh, Oscar. That's the one I said maybe call spread if there's any juice. Oh, the third one I did was pay. I shorted the $41 calls for $1.15. I mean, could it have gapped there? Of course it could. I don't know if they're a good idea, but something that runs from here to here, far from the 20, and the 41's being $6.50 away. So I did that one. All right, I see WEC here is it's not WEC. Upwork is going against me. Let me see what the midpoint is. Upwork. Wow, I still have a small profit. And only the nickel, but with this big gap against me. All right, so I'm gonna kill it. All right, I'm done. Do you believe that? With that big gap against me, I got out at a nickel profit. Yeah, UAL, I tightened stop earlier. All right, this pay, let me see where the calls are. Oh, they finally opened further away strikes. It's the spreads. He's not letting me out. I'm bidding a nickel, and they're a nickel by 65. So it's just that stupid spread game. I look at Clorox in the middle, tanking. Ah, that's an igniting gap in a downtrend, but that's a gap and go. And all right, Autodesk. I tighten the stop. So that I tightened it. JFBR, nothing. LYV. All right, that was we talked about it. We're long that. Don't like the gap more than 50% into that WRB. So he's on probation. All right, WEC alarm, maybe 30-minute high. It's still top of the range, nothing to do. Let's see if we can hold the gain. Rail alarm, earnings, potential bottoming pattern. SPSC alarm. We had a break even stop. So I'm assuming that's SPSC. Oh, no, wait. Yeah, 142. 141. So let's move a 5-minute low. 141.77. Because we have an open profit and it kept under it. So this will still protect the profit and give it a 5-minute low. Bulls stepped up here at the market open. Let's see how far they go. Alex, our race is up. My four. So Alex, that's me bidding a dime. Is that you bidding 20 cents on your 410s? But it's a stupid spread game again. It's 10 by 80. So I can't get out. ARTFX doing great. Let's move stop over this base even. 125.42. Okay. Oh, that's where it is. Okay, I already did that. All right, so we're in management mode. Let's maybe just give it a next third target is all. Wow, you're getting good at options. Do you want to help me in coaching today? All right, what's our next target? Do you think? Alex, what's our next target on TFX? It's hard to tell. I mean, it's extended on the hourly, but there's no reason to get out. I know, but I like giving a target just in case it does a little swan dive. So I'm just gonna kind of swag it. Yeah, yeah. I was thinking overshooting it. So that's exactly, I'm thinking 119.50. That's fine, I'll be watching it, but just for a little swan dive scenario. PayPal gap down and it's coming back. CVS. I don't like the way. Oh, over yesterday's high should be okay. More for a put spread to me because I don't know the way it came down. I just don't know how much it's going to go up. But I'll just eyeball in here. I'll set an alarm at 68.10. SPSC trail stopping out at a gain. IoT. IoT. Let's start trade here. 47.88. All right, I'm look. It's a something something bar, even on bad news. For me, I would want it to close like this, so I'm not as excited about doing it right now as you are. All right, where was IoT? All right, Don, I closed my PAY short call at 15 cents. I'll be done with it. It was spreading. My Clorox fell too much. Okay, I'm done. This VIK. Well, I got my alarm up there, so I'm not gonna worry about it. I don't like the gap down. Um, Our other alarms here, our ATGE is still fine, upper 50%. Let's set low alarm 111. Lulu alarm. All right, we did it. Kava. All right, Kava, we're stopping out of our puts. We did half yesterday. We stopped out at 95 bucks a while ago. All right, so we got out of half yesterday at 20. GNRC. It's another one of these. I don't know how far it's going to go. It is bottoming, so it's one of these of rate the quality of the bottoming pattern, and I just don't know. But I will put it on the list to watch. And I'll set an alarm right at 117.40, right in the middle of that resistance. Q's holding the best here on the 5-minute chart. 117.40. All right, Costco, we had a put spread, and that's holding up pretty well. PayPal. Let's move. Well, I already tightened the stump. And then UAL, I tighten it up also. $72. Let's move it now. 70, 72, 78. 70.66. All right, so despite the gap down, we're at the same midpoint as yesterday. So that's nice. Stock went against us and not hurting. Yeah, no kidding. I get caught in that all the time. But I knew he was historically. All right, IWM, the weakest here, threatening the lows. Then looks lower. Nice out on my upward. I'm down with a profit. That's an igniting gap from a bottoming pattern. Wow. That's a bullish gap. In fact, if you get a 1, 2, 3, No, no, never mind. Well, 16 would be the target. UNH still can't make a turn. Sig from yesterday. Remember, Alex? Do you remember what I said in the morning? I said, I do not trust it till I see it close. I'm just going through some stocks on my other computer here. Cyber. It is, but messy. You know, I don't like the big gap down and rallying to fill the gap. What trade? I mean, it is kind of a big inverse head and shoulder, a big one, but I'd like it to go sideways a little bit more. And again, the market the way it is, I'm not rushing, but it's a breakout on the weekly, so it's worth watching. It's just not ready. Hey, pal. All right, we have a small open profit. Let's tighten it now. 67. Was it 67, 70? Using they're all horsemen new low. So no longs for me. Got a nice open gain on this put spread, so it's 14 right now. And, let's see that Thomas mentioned NEM. Yeah, it needs to come in and back and fill and stuff. Nothing to do now. Dub naked puts are fine. WRB, we have break even. Oh, Netflix, forgot that. Well, we got an open profit, but not a big one. This thing is still. But now at least I can get rid of the one-to-one thing. All right, now I'll just move it up here. Over 1160. Time for Netflix to split 10-1. It's crazy strong. RMD I have on my list from yesterday, I'm deleting that. I think that was on Sam's list. Casey, I got an alarm. UNH is still a dog, but I'll reset the alarm. Four oh six. Whack is to Whippy and deleting him. RRX was igniting. Extended Charlie Echo. Bullish gap, but a mess. Vic, I got an alarm. Race. I'm bidding to get out. So Alex, I'm gonna set an alarm at 466 on the downside. Just to look at it if it gets there. Oh shit, somebody jumped me on my nickel or dime. It's 25 now. Shoot. That's weird. Stock went up. Volatility should be contracting. So all that means is to me is somebody else is bidding to get out also. And they're like, just let me be done with it. So, my team. Yeah, bottoming pattern, and that's a something bar if it closes like this. Sure. It's a bear gap that bullies too. Yeah, let's see what it does here in the next hour and 5 hours. Yeah, puts are too spready to deal with. Otherwise, I would. Actually, Alex, I'm going to play. You obviously know what I mean when I say play market maker. So the 360s are 0 by 370. So I'm going to put an order out for 270. Go $1 lower than him. But I'm just toying around because there's less than 1% chance I'll get filled unless it gives it up. But 370s below this prior low on the weekly. Well, right here. All right, I got all alarms done. If you were day trading this TFX, it's a climb on the 15. It's probably a good spot to take another third or half or whatever. But we're swinging it, so I'll give it more room. There's only 2 green stocks on the Dow 30. 11 cents and 13. CVX looks horrible. Looks like a bearish consolidation and a downtrend. Verizon up 12 cents. Substantially better pattern, but still nothing to do with it.